everybody and welcome back to another video from MBChB, and in today's video, as you can see by the video title, as per tradition, we are doing an overview of MBChB Year 5 here at Edinburgh Medical School. If you are new to the channel and you don't know who I am, my name is Shamaz. I am now going into my final year of medical school, and as we do every single year, I'm going to give you an overview of all the modules, placements, exams, everything that I covered in this past year, so that if you are someone who's going to be going into your 5th year soon, then this could be relevant for you and gives you an idea of what to look forward to. I realise things do change year on year, so this might not be fully accurate for your year, but hopefully it will give you a good idea. Now, 5th year is sometimes also known as the specialties year because it's not so general like 4th year. You have niche specialties that you cover, and the other big difference is that you do have a placement for every single specialty you cover, so studying can be a bit easier to plan because you can just study the specialty that you're on placement for. So let's just run through what the specialties are and what placement blocks you will get. So I started the year off with a 5-week placement in paediatrics at Dumfries and Galloway Royal Infirmary. I then moved into a 5-week block of HOTBU. So HOTBU stands for Haematology, Oncology, Palliative Care, Breast and Urology. They're all kind of interlinked, so it worked out alright, and that was at the Western General Hospital. I then had my OSCEs that tested me on those 2 5-week blocks, and then I moved into obstetrics and gynecology, so that was 5 weeks at the Royal Infirmary of Edinburgh, and then I did 5 weeks of dermatology, ENT and ophthalmology. Again, it was kind of split up, so I got a little taster of all of them, and then I did my OSCEs for those 2 blocks, and then my last 2 blocks was psychiatry, again a 5-week block. This time I was based kind of Midlothian community hospitals as well as the Royal Edinburgh Hospital, and then my last block was orthopedics and renal, 2 weeks each, so it was a 4-week block. I should also mention there are some workshops kind of throughout the year, so some blocks were 4 weeks, not 5, but we'll go through that. And then yeah, I had my OSCE at the end of that, and yeah, that was my overview of the year. That is all the specialties that you will cover and all the conditions associated with them. So as you can see, I was based mostly centrally for my placements, except my first one, which was paediatrics in Dumfries. You can hear about my full experience by watching the vlogs, but I'd say I'd never heard of Dumfries before, and there are a few other weird and wonderful places that you could be placed at, like more peripherally than 4th year placements. So I know a few friends who were placed somewhere between Edinburgh and Glasgow. I can't quite remember the name, but there's that. Also for psychiatry, as a voluntary thing, I went to the State Hospital, which is in Carstairs, again between Edinburgh and Glasgow somewhere. So there are a few peripheral placements. Borders is definitely up there, St John's, also Victoria Hospital in Kirkcaldy Fife. They're all popular areas. And then I guess just to add to that, for ophthalmology, your eye pavilion at Lauriston Place is closed for refurbishment at the moment, so they are basing most of you at St John's. So I'd say like the Royal Infirmary and Western General are there, St John's is there still, Borders, up there Victoria, and then a few other peripheral sites. So it definitely helps if you have a car. Like, I know all the people who went to Dumfries, and it was 3 of us. We all had cars, we all drove, and it was a 2-hour drive, so it was a little bit hectic, but remember, it is only 5 weeks, so it's very manageable. Most of these places you do get free accommodation. I can't speak for all of the accommodation being very good, but you can hopefully see from my vlogs that the Dumfries one was actually quite pleasant. Now, I'm going to leave a document down in the description that gives you all the list of conditions that you need to know for 5th year. It's not an exhaustive list, but it's all the things that I covered throughout the year. So I tried to, you know, go through the lecture slides, learning intentions, content maps, etc., and just tried to make a list of everything just to plan out my studying and make sure I was ticking things off. So feel free to use that if it helps. Obviously, just make sure that it is in line with the latest version of the curriculum. Alongside attending placement and obviously studying for your knowledge exams, you also have your clinical portfolio, which you'll be completing with different tasks, similar enough to 4th year, I'd say. So there's pretty much a case-based discussion that you have to write for all of the specialties. Some specialties are a bit bigger than others, so like pediatrics, obstetrics and gynecology and psychiatry, you have to do 2 case-based discussions for each of them. They also come up more heavily in the OSCEs compared to the other blocks, which are a bit more split with very niche specialties. So just be aware of that. But overall, I'd say the clinical portfolio requirements are very achievable. I tried to get my sign-offs done as soon as possible. For example, like in orthopedics, you've got to get a lower limb examination, an upper limb examination, you're writing your case, so that can all really be done in a week quite easily. Other specialties might take you a while. For example, in obstetrics and gynecology, when you're trying to go and see births as a sign-off, you've got to get 2 sign-offs, preferably 1 C-section, 1 vaginal. You have to kind of wait around a bit, plan a bit on placement, and see, where you can observe some of that and get involved. So a little bit of planning around, but if you've done 4th year, you'll be very aware with how to achieve your DOPS and your other clinical skill requirements. Okay, let's talk about assessments and exams. So I already touched a bit on the OSCEs. So your OSCEs aren't like in 4th year where they were all at the end of the year. This time they are dotted around a bit. So you have 3 OSCEs at the end of each 10-week block of placement. So for example, for my first block, which was pediatrics and HOTBU, I had 2 pediatric stations and 1 HOTBU. Then with the obs and gynae one, you'll have 2 stations on obstetrics and gynecology, and then 1 station on either ENT, dermatology or ophthalmology. There are 11 OSCE stations in total, and I believe the pass rate was something like 6 out of 11. The other difference I'd note compared to 4th year is that there's a greater emphasis on getting the diagnosis right this time. So of course you will get marks for communication skills and following through on your clinical judgment, but trying to actually work out the diagnosis, being a bit more systematic with your approach is something that I felt there was a greater emphasis on in the OSCEs this year. For the knowledge exams, you'll have a formative multiple choice knowledge in March, I believe. So that one obviously doesn't count towards anything, but it's definitely good practice. I remember in 4th year you had 2 formatives. This year you only have 1 formative, so you do want to make the most of it. Try and aim to have the course complete by that formative, but that is honestly a challenge because I remember 4th year I was able to do 2 full rounds of the course. 5th year I only just managed to finish it before my exams. So obviously there was a lot more content, but as a rough guide or a goal, I guess, try to get things done by the formative. After that, you obviously have your main summative knowledge exams, so that will be 2 knowledge exams, same format as 4th year, so 1 after the other, both 80 multiple choice, mixture of short best answer and multiple choice, 80 questions, 1 day after the other. And if you don't pass them, and I believe the pass mark was around 60% mark, it always is around 60, then you will do the paper 3, and if you don't pass the paper 3 and your collective marks don't add up to above 60%, then you will have to redo 5th year. Another component as part of 5th year is the SSC 5. Now, the student selected component in year 5 is a medical education based project. It is a lot more self-directed than what you were maybe familiar with in years 1 and 2 for their SSCs. So for this, you put together a group and you essentially find your own supervisor, and you want to be teaching a series of tutorials for either younger year groups or for primary school children or a group that you may decide on. For me, I was one of the project leads, so this is something else you're going to have to work out. There's going to be kind of the project leads and there will be project tutors, and you will come up with a series of tutorials. For me, I came up for my group a series of surgery prep tutorials, that's what we named it, where we are preparing students for surgical placement. So it was a series of tutorials focusing on kind of introduction to theatre, cardiothoracic surgery, neurosurgery, general surgery, telling the students about the different and common procedures that they're likely to encounter, how to scrub in, how to do some basic suturing skills, all that kind of thing, and we put that together. SSC 5 kicks off very shortly as you move into 5th year, so I would already be thinking about what you want to do for this project. You don't have to do loads and loads of tutorials. We ended up doing 7, which was a lot, and our group was also 10 people, so you don't have to make your group that big. You can just have a very small group and do a smaller project. At the end of SSC 5, when you've done teaching your tutorials between like November and February, you submit a reflective report at the end of all of this in March time. And that is a pass or fail, but it is an important component in passing the whole year. But I would say really plan ahead for SSC 5 because there's so many different deadlines for submitting project proposals, project blueprints, risk assessments, ethical assessments, and obviously planning the tutorials and the resources that come with that. So just be really on top of it with that. It seems like a small thing, but it actually takes up a lot of time in the year. Also throughout the year you will be taught 3 main workshops. So these are called Doctor as a Communicator. So this is all about using the spikes protocol, knowing how to break bad news. You'll do this with simulated actors. The second one is Doctor as a Safe Practitioner. So this is all about safe prescribing, looking at, you know, when things go wrong, what happens, like the Swiss cheese model, all that good stuff, and really like how to document everything and be a safe practitioner. And the third workshop is Doctor as an Educator. So the GMC now requires all doctors to be competent in teaching. That is something you have to do. So even if you're not keen on teaching, it's something that you will have to do a little bit of as you move into being a foundation year doctor. But this is a really useful workshop, and it can really help if you've got Doctor as an Educator earlier on in the year, because you can apply some of the principles they teach you to your SSC 5 project. So it can link up well, but it's not necessary for you to have done Doctor as an Educator to have like a good SSC 5 project. But that is the 3 main workshops to be aware of. Alright everybody, well that's going to be the end of this video. I hope you have found this useful. Make sure to go and check out the document in the description, which will give you a full outline of all the conditions that I covered this year. And if you've got any questions, do let me know. I'd say 5th year is more challenging, the most challenging year so far, because of the pace and just the quantity of stuff that needs to be done. But it's definitely doable with the right organisation, so you just got to be on it from day one. And you'll be fine. If I can help you in any way at all, always reach out, and I'll see you all in my next video. Goodbye.